Hello everybody, I have fully embraced this being a vlog channel by now, by which I mean whatever I do for entertainment that week is just what you're gonna get, because I can't shut up. And it's my channel, so I get to talk if I want to about all the topics that people don't normally care about and that lose me subscribers, but regardless, I'm gonna talk about whatever the heck I want to. And honestly, I found some amount of people that overlay between witch stuff and Vampire the Masquerade, and it's a very weird niche, but I've gotten some excellent conversational partners out of that. Shout out to Hexaman in case he is on this video. I've reviewed Hellebore's issues 1 and 2 because, once again, I really needed to talk despite doing nothing gaming related that week. So I was like, why the heck not? I managed to finish issue 3 this week. So hey, let me talk about it. So first of all, issue 2 suffered from issues such as unpleasant coloration when it comes to text, specifically pink text at points, and a lack of cohesiveness. But as I said, at issue 2 they thought that the magazine was just gonna die. It didn't. Issue 3 came out and it is very, very cohesive and quite informative. So issue 3 is Malefice. It's all about... It's a combination of stories to do with a harmful magic, and we start from stories about the witches that were convicted of witchcraft and killed in England in ye olden times, and how unfortunate that was, because those women, it's questionable. They could have been witches, they could have been non-witches, either way, the treatment, the way that they got treated was highly unacceptable, followed by just some nice pages on herbs and their properties, and I arrived at this intermission in between other articles, and I was like, alright, Darren, I have a stone book. I never got myself a herb book, because there is quite a disagreement of what each herb should be used for what, and there's not one really good herb properties encyclopedia outside of more scientific stuff, which is honestly not what I'm looking for. I mean, we peppermint and chamomile for calming effects, but people tend to want to use it for more. They tend to want to combine flavors depending on the outcomes that they might want to achieve. They might want to know what herbs go well with what gods and deities, and as a replacement for sacrifices. So if somebody sat down and read all of the old wives' tales and combined that with regular folklore and combined that with mythos and gave me a list of the herbs that they found in those stories and what properties those stories say that the herbs have, and put them in alphabetical order, the herbs I mean, I'm just gonna say that I would definitely buy this highly specific product. We have a single church story. The church stories just keep on reappearing, and this one was about how a pastor blocked a burial of a 2-year-old child, and that has left to a revolution of who can and cannot be buried and where. Very interesting story, especially considering that people have decided that the devil himself was buried in that location, and the story doesn't lean into that. I say the story, it's actual historical events of what happened in the place, it's an interesting dissection of how something that actually happened became folklore and what actual changes the happening produced. I am now I'm gonna find the name to just give you a name. Yeah, there we go. Google the Ackenham Devil in case you don't wanna buy Hellebore issue 3. I would recommend Hellebore issue 3 even over issue 1. It's honestly, it's like they found their vibe. And by now it's going good and it's not as chaotic as issue 2 was. But because I already gave yes, brain, continue. It's 4 a.m. This is not a reason to stop working. Issue 1, 5 out of 5. I would just repeat the rating. It's just, if you're interested in the occult, they don't claim to have spells or anything like that. If you're just interested in occult history, folklore history, this is a great magazine. And while there's more things that I'm interested in, I have very specific personal belief system and a very specific personal system that I have kind of settled into, so I don't actually look out other people's proclamations and spells. So this is actually like right up my alley of what I want out of my occult publications, and it doesn't fail to amuse me. And I don't mean that in the, oh, haha, this is so ridiculous way. I mean it in the very, very literal way. So anyways, now we start getting into people using magic and curses, and it's funny because with some of these events that they recall, they almost prove the effectiveness of magic, but nobody but a believer of magic will actually take it as a proof that something has worked. For example, there is a story about the guy that wrote Dorian Gray. Oscar Wilde, there we go. It's the middle of the night. My brain is in all sorts of places. Don't ask me to be coherent. Why am I talking to you right now? Because I have no other time to talk to you. So this is the best that you're gonna get. I am sorry. He and his wife, or rather, I think it's just his wife, joined the Golden Dawn Society, got initiated, tried to take their magical workings and then incorporate them into Oscar Wilde's books. At that point, I still had some magical friends to talk to, and they made an exclamation that what constituted disclosing occult secrets back then and what constitutes it now is like two completely different things. They looked at the guy writing some notes or a guy writing about cause and effect effectively and were like, yep, you disclosed some occult secrets there, bruh. While right now you can put it out whole works. And it's less that the works are not there and more that you need a specific kind of person that can actually feel your work's meaning. And by that I mean I can find new meaning in the Bible if I reread it again, and I can notice so many things of what people are not actually noticing and how their commandments are less what they seem to be. And the teachings are less what they seem to be, and I can see how they echo the truth, but most people that will read it will read what is on the paper level and will not actually understand everything underneath. And it actually creates a huge, huge issue when followings form on that, to a point where then we establish that, you know what, we're just not gonna share anything. But if I sat down and I wrote about cause and effect, I guarantee you no society would yell, "Oh my god, you betrayed our secrets!" Or focus. Expenditure of energy. They're fairly simple concepts. It's not some sort of long beholden secret, but then again, we're also in the age of the internet and everybody can find absolutely everything and mess about with whatever they want to mess about, for better or for worse. I honestly don't hate it. If things are easier to find, I don't hate it. It's only an issue when people will build cults on their own interpretations of the texts that are out there. Them being out there by themselves doesn't hurt anybody. Also might be an issue if you're a very, very sensitive person that's easily scared and you're trying to do something. I know of a person that spooked themselves with a protective rune. Don't ask me how. They just got really freaked out. It stays with you. You know, maybe if you're gonna get spooked by protective runes, don't research witchcraft for your own mental well-being. Protective rune won't harm you. It won't hurt you, I promise. But if it's gonna have such an effect on you, don't even start. But anyways, we're going completely off topic, so back to Oscar Wilde and his wife. He was initiated at the same time as American singer Anna de Bremont, the widow of a French count who had moved to England after her husband's death. For the ceremony of admittance, they were blindfolded and dressed up in black robes and red shoes, reciting an oath of secrecy before a hierophant sitting on his throne and pinned down by a sword against their necks. By the way, all of the ceremonial magic rituals, they all just sound so wild. Like, I never needed that. But at the same time, if anyone wanted to do some wicked shit, dude in the woods while dressed in black cloaks with swords, I might sign up just for experience sake. Honestly, sounds kind of fun. In this oath, they acknowledged that betraying the secrets of the Golden Dawn would cause them to be expelled and subject to a deadly and hostile current of will set in motion by the chiefs of the order, by which they shall fall slain or paralyzed without visible weapon. This is so not specific, but that paralyzed bit. Constance left the Golden Dawn in 1889. Just, if there is a curse upon joining, maybe don't even join. I know that I can't tell that to Victorians, but just pointing to any would-be witches, you can practice in private. Trust me, the information's like out there right now. You don't actually need other human beings. You humans kind of complicate things. Just when Oscar began work on the portrait of Dorian Gray in the 1900s, the entire family faced ruination. Exiled from society, Constance became ill with a mysterious malady that caused her to slowly lose the use of her arms and legs, and eventually led to her death at the age of 40. It was perhaps multiple sclerosis, but by then some people believed that Wilde's ill fortune and starkly Constance's unexplainable paralysis was due to something else. I bloody don't blame them. Okay? I don't. That was such an oddly specific thing to happen after such an oddly specific curse. Like, it's easy to deny for anyone that's not looking to, accept this kind of thing, but for anyone that does accept this kind of thing, it's like, well, the pudding. This is your pudding. Mozart's 1791 opera The Magic Flute, with its compelling use of symbols and fantasy realms, is understood to have revealed Masonic teachings. There have always been rumors that Mozart was poisoned or placed under a fatal curse, for he died suddenly not long after the opera was first performed. As I tell you, this is like semi-sort of proving Magic, the magazine at the moment. And once again, the old orders, they were kind of hardcore. They're like, dude wrote some music notes. Let me go curse a bitch. There are people singing full-on hypersigils right now. The only difference between a hypersigil and a sigil is that a sigil is something that you put a sentence or a couple of sentences or a poem or however you want to phrase it into a drawing of intent, normally by taking out specific letters and then arranging the remaining letters. That's one of the options, not the only one. A hypersigil is when you take your intent and make an artwork with it. So you can have somebody writing up lyrics, then drawing up geometric shapes, then matching that with notes. You can make that process as difficult as you want. I have done some drawings like that myself. And then singing that out. They're being magicians on stage, and we no longer... Nobody's coming after them because it's not a forbidden thing to do anymore, thankfully, in a way. Our society has a lot of faults. Freedom in witchcraft is not one of them. There is a lot of notes here on magic in television series and books and how it related to the woman being a good housewife as like a primary example, and how that evolved over time. For when the housewife was also a magic woman, she only ever used that to empower her husband, or was told to drop witchcraft and she did, or she was very specifically evil, or only did rituals in order to conceive the best babies. We progressed past that, but there's like this whole progression, and I have highlighted myself exactly one sentence of all of these groups of articles, and it's: in both Conjure Wife and Night of the Ego, women are the link of the natural world and the humanity's own magic-drenched past. That hit a very specific note, and this is something that people will not like hearing it, but it does prove to be kinda true, at least in my practice. Masculine energy tends to be an energy of do and go and must happen now. It has this kind of oomph to it. It has very little patience. Doesn't mean that as a man you should act with little patience, but it's a source of action that cuts through everything and cares for nothing. If I had to just put the energy into a definition, and once again, don't be that kind of human being. This isn't like some sort of quality that I'm telling you to ingest right now if you want to be a man. This is me just trying to describe masculine energy, and it's very active. Woman's energy, on the other hand, is very passive. It's almost like we feel it. So while the guy has run off to do something with like 1% of the instruction, you might be very slow to go and actually do something, but you will be there to feel the full instruction as instructed by the universe. And that's why if a woman gets a god, speaking about Christian nuns in here, she becomes quite the force to be reckoned with, because passivity allows you to inhale quite a lot of that energy, and you're not impatient enough to just run off with it. So you just sit there until you fully vibe, and both used together as forces, they work really well, but once again, don't... It's hard to explain to anyone that isn't practicing magic, or anyone that can't read my mind right now, because I am sounding really kooky. for most of you probably, this isn't me saying that women can't do or that all men lack patience. This is me trying to explain the energies of the feminine and the masculine. It's just the kind of notes that they hit for me. So when the statement states women are the link of the natural world to humanity's own magic-drenched past, I go, that makes perfect sense. That absolutely tracks. It makes absolute perfect sense. And it's not necessarily what they meant, by the way. Not by what the author meant, but what they were trying to portray in the movie. In the movie, it's more like women are more savages, you know, that sort of thing. There's another line that I noted. It's from one of these movies. One of the characters says it. There are two sides to every woman. One is rational, like a man. The other knows. Men are artificially isolated creatures protected by their own rationality and their devices and their women. Ability to vibe with your environment against all common sense. If you made me explain what the energy of passivity does, it's that. You're just predisposed to inhaling nature and potentially spirits if you want to work with them, or potentially a god if you want to work with that. You just have an easier access to that realm, or you have the patience for it and probably want less out of it. But once again, trail of thought just ran away. We have beautiful breakdown of, once again, movies, works of fiction dealing with witches. Then there is a story written about puppets. Puppets, by the way, is kind of like voodoo dolls, except not. The use of dolls in magic was never exclusive to voodoo, and this is particularly what the article is trying to get to. And the use of dolls in cursing in general, and how in 1950s and 1960s you could see that in England, in isolated rural towns, and people did believe in that. If you wanted something bad to happen to someone, you could make an effigy and effectively do something with the effigy, be it stab it, be it dissolve it, dress it as a person, hang it as a warning, all sorts of things. Furthermore, we have a story about how a museum is potentially haunted because of all of the artifacts that they got from other countries, and how this might be a bit of a colonizer's guilt creeping in. But at the same time, yeah, that would make sense. And how that spawned the genre of where a well-meaning researcher gets too close to an artifact and creepy shit happens. And all I could think of after reading that article is, damn, I always thought about sleeping in nice old manors. Not that that's the only place where there are ghosts. To probably be the least ghosts in manors. I mean, they're such nice places. Rich people used to live there. If you want ghosts, go to where poor really, really suffered. You would probably have some very, very confused spirits that haven't crossed over yet. It just made me think, though, damn, I never wanted to sleep in the museum before, but now I do. Not that I sleep at night. Not that I sleep at night. Then, nearer to the end, we have a whole list of history of where people attempted to do magic in order to make historical events happen, or were blamed for doing magic and making historical events happen. And once again, I have a highlighted passage of, when England was on high alert preparing for a German invasion, a group of witches known as the New Forest Coven performed a magical working known as Operation Cone of Power. It happened in the small British town of Highcliffe-on-Sea, Hampshire, on the midnight of Lammas Eve in 1940. Gerald Gardner, the founder of modern Wicca, was part of this gathering and wrote about it in his 1954 book Witchcraft Today. According to Gardner, the New Forest Coven collectively focused energies on the invading armies in a bid to propel them away, allegedly replicating a spell that had been used against Napoleon and Francis Drake. With regard to its effectiveness on the Nazis, Gardner declared, "I am not saying that they stopped Hitler. All I say is that I saw a very interesting ceremony performed with the intention of putting a certain idea into his mind, and though all the invasion barges were ready, the fact was that Hitler never even tried to come." Once again, I believe that that is a beautifully spoken thing of going, hey, I can't prove that this helped, but at the same time, this maybe probably sorta did help. And that is the thing that people misunderstand with magic in general. It's not just, hey, you sit down, you pray at a tree, and a bag of money falls down. It is performing ritualized actions with driven force and intention in order to make something happen alongside actual real-world actions also trying to make something happen. You can't, it has to be 2 on 1. It can't just be you sit at a tree, you pray, and money bag falls out. Well, maybe you're gonna get lucky at a lottery ticket, but do actions well. And I say that, but I have done some workings where the only thing that I could have done was the working, but at the same time, other things can be happening at the same time. I mean, that coven, it's not like they were blocking Hitler's way physically themselves. They were performing a ritual. The soldiers on the other side were doing extra work, but I have wished an end to certain social media places, and I'm not very easy be convinced to do harm. I rarely do harm, is what I mean. I rarely take personal offense. I will often ward things off rather than try and curse people. Just recently, I had to leave a place for I suppose this works out nicely into a video. There's a lot of belief of I can't going around right now. There's a lot of belief that everything is doom and gloom, that nothing will get better, and that people can't achieve their success, that they can't get a house, that they can't raise a family, that they can't get a better job. And when there's I can't, there's no try anymore. And the server that I was in, with people that I am very loose with this word, really. I decided to give it to anyone that wants to take it, but friends. Let's say friends. It would be hard for me to distinguish between a friend and acquaintance, so I just decided to be generous with how I identify my friends. There was a lot of belief that they couldn't get out of the situations that they were currently in. And another member in that server was talking about a completely unrelated thing. Completely unrelated. And they used the sentence to motivate themselves at that point, which was, even paraplegics get degrees. It's a good way of looking at it. It's, hey, if this person that's obviously worse off than me did something that I find admirable, then I can do it too. The people on the server took it as personal attack of, you're not doing enough to improve your life. Which they weren't. But I am not I will never pressure somebody to go and make the decisions. They have to arrive there naturally, and whenever they arrive at a place, that is when they arrive. I can't help somebody that doesn't want to help themselves, so instead you can only pat them on the back and go, there, everything's gonna be okay, Cookie. I know that it's bad. I know that you're suffering. If you want to come over, talk at me. Get that off your chest. I can't do anything else. At some point, they will have to get themselves out of the situation that they're in, because literally nobody else can do it for them. But they took it as a personal insult. They took it as, obviously, we are being judged here. And they kicked this other person, saying, oh, they're just a lot more privileged than me. It's nothing that I can do. Or it is their privilege that they could do something. And it is just the biggest dodge that you can have. I don't need to have introspection of my own life choices, because of course that other person achieved something because they had it better than me to begin with. I am permanently stuck in this. And this is the issue. No matter the situation that you're in, the moment you tell yourself, I am permanently cursed to be in here because of the choices that happened before I was born that had nothing to do with me, is the moment when you stop even trying. And when you're not even gonna try, how do you expect anything to happen? It's not like, once again, if you're just gonna sit underneath a tree expecting a money bag to fall on your head, that's not gonna happen. You need to have willpower. If not in magic, you need to have willpower in your own life, and you need to drive it. You need to take responsibility, and you need to find a way to navigate this boat. My belief system being what it is, it felt wrong staying there. It felt wrong staying there. So I thanked them for holding a space for me, for taking me in, and I left. And no matter how the situation went down, I bear no ill will towards any of the participants, right? Previously, I had a letter from Jehovah's Witness delivered to my house, and it honestly made me feel ill, for that's not my Lord, and don't like other people's willful prayer. It does things to me. My husband doesn't understand it, and doesn't do anything to him, but I feel it. Hello, female passivity and ability to feel more, and obviously the comments will tell me that I'm completely insane. But I warded against that specific person with the hope that very specifically it will make that very specific person to not send me religious propaganda again to my very specific street. It was very specifically worded. And once again, they're not having bad intentions. I don't have bad intentions back. Now, that being said, there are a few times when I saw what I thought could end up being a very, very bad thing. I saw in one of the internet spaces effectively a cult forming. They were trying to recruit 10,000 members for a newborn cult, effectively, from what used to be a place to share knowledge and what used to be a place to read books. And when I saw that, I was one of the first people to be removed off the server when moderation changed, for I defended a person that wasn't doing anything wrong, really, and it's more that the server owner had beef with them over social issues. Quite specifically, they did not like that the person was trans, and they were trying to find any reasons to remove them. Eventually, they removed them for posting sigils in the channel made specifically to post sigils saying that this is the majority of your activity on the server. A lot of people from 10,000 members at that point were completely inactive, by the way. But they removed him of that because, quite specifically, the new server owner had beef with this person from olden times. I quite simply stated that they weren't doing anything against the rules, and that if there is now a rule of having to have a specific level of engagement before you can post a specific amount of sigils inside the sigil channel, they should convey this rule. They should actually put it in writing, which pissed them off and got me kicked off. What was happening there for days and weeks before, it was not a good thing. They were making a cult. And I did some workings, and quite specifically, I stated that I want that dumpster fire to burn down. I want that space gone. I want that space insignificant. I don't want others to be at risk of falling into that space, for it is not a good space to fall into. And 2 months later, their 10,000 members have dropped to, I think there are about 500 right now. They're a very closed community that requires extra verifications and you to give a lot of your own personal information in order to even join. Age, sex, location, that sort of thing. But they're no longer prominent. They're not out there. And these are the kind of things that make me resort to doing rather malefic actions. But I assure you, the few times when I resorted to doing rather malefic ritualistic actions, it worked. Oftentimes I perform magic to empower myself. When the whole fallout happened, that did struck me. Despite the fact that I try to not get attached to people, non-attachment is very important to my core. This doesn't mean being rude, this doesn't mean not having friends. It means understanding that people are transient and they can enter and leave your life, and you're not gonna stand there and kick your feet, cry about it, try to drag them back in. So despite that philosophy, it upset me to have to leave that behind. So I did a working to cut myself off from all of that. And I quite specifically stated from all of humanity that is currently in the physical body, and this can have effects on all of your relationships in general, but honestly I wasn't too worried because I wanted to shut off the energy stream in general. Middle of the working, it's like all that heaviness of my chest and all of those negative feelings, they went away while I was still crafting it. So to then sit down and have a magazine about malefic workings. By the way, this isn't a dangerous one, this is just me disconnecting. I honestly kinda like how they look. I tend to publish on Twitter, they're not some sort of secret knowledge. I tell my husband my drawing therapy. I tell drawing therapy for anyone of rational mind. So to sit down and to have a nicely written article that makes no statements ever each way, but goes, hey, it could have been this, it could have been that. They don't even do that for the most part. They just state of what observable thing happened. So once again, if you just want to study occult history and you believe none of this, perfectly fine. Absolutely perfectly fine. There's nothing in here that would change your mind, because you would just be like, oh, some people were doing rituals in the woods at the same time as the soldiers were battling the Germans. And the soldiers did all of the work, but quite interesting to know that at the same time the rituals were being performed, that people believed in that sort of thing. Well, on the other hand, you have me that sits here and goes, I can see a connection, and I can see how that ritual could have had a real world impact, or my own workings had a real world impact on my own life. So for me, this kind of issue is very affirming. For someone else, it can just be a nice bit of lore. Either way, this has now been ramble of 40 minutes. Thank you for listening. Thank you for letting me get my shit off my chest. That is what I use this channel for. I love having conversations. And hopefully I get to see you the next time. If you want to buy it, the link for the issue is in the description down below. Together for the link for all 3 first issues, which is something that I bought. I highly recommend this one. I do. If I had to rank them all, now 2 would be at the back, followed by 1 in the middle, and this would be like the bestest. I still have 3 more to catch up with, but this is the ranking for the time being. Thank you for watching, and see you later.